Welcome to the Galactic Mind Weather Report. So I'm coming to you today at the center of the Blue Hand Wavespell. So this is 13 days that are dedicated to the evolution of our capacity to heal, to acquire the knowledge, to become, centered in our avatars, to know who we are and what we're here for. And it really brings this kind of impetus, this motivation to acknowledge where our separation still exists. To acknowledge where the dis-ease is in our bodies and our minds and souls, so that we can find ways to bring and bridge that separation. And today being the center of this Blue Hand Wavespell, we find the secrets to what it takes to keep ourselves in alignment to the healing process. What does it take to channel through what we need in order to heal? What do we need to do in order to acquire the knowledge of the separation and how we can heal it? And the center of the blue hand is the red Resonant Skywalker. So this really speaks to the archetype that's responsible for this process. And when I contemplate this and dance with this, to me it speaks to this idea that if you want to be able to discover your healing, if you want to be able to really understand what is inside you that is out of harmony, that is in disharmony, that is creating dis-ease in your physical body, your relationships, your financial situation, etc., then the Skywalker is basically saying that we must first go out and explore ourselves in contrast to the outside reality. So the Skywalker, the red Skywalker energy, is all about awakening. It's waking up. Its opposite is called the blue knight. That's about going internally in order to discover our intuition, to find our learnings inside. But we need to balance these opposites. And the red Skywalker is calling for us to come out of our shells, where so many of us may have a very open personality, an open character. You can see some people, like a lot of actors do this. They're such, extravagant out there characters, but they're actually hiding the real them deep inside, beneath all of this ego character. And it's a self-defense mechanism. And so the Skywalker is all about taking that part of you that's kind of hiding inside and going out there into the world and discovering who you are through the reflections of your actions being shown back to you from those around you. It's like if we were born in a white padded cell and all you knew was your physical body and there was nothing but whiteness around you, then how would you ever know who you are? How would you know that there's, how would you know anything without some contrast, without some kind of experience to butt up against, some reflections? And some even theorize that, life is really, God, this existence, this oneness that is broken apart into a duality, is broken apart in order that it can explore itself. Because in its oneness, it can't perceive itself. But as it splits, it then has something to grit and change and move, and it gets this life force to explore and discover. In fact, a lot of alchemy was about that. It was like break down a solid and break it into its many components so that it can then get to know itself and come back together in its most potent form. And so the red Resonant Skywalker of today and the center of this blue hand wavespell is asking you to really look at the reflections around you and don't blame those reflections. Don't sit there and say, oh, it's these people are assholes, or that's not fair, and this is crazy, and that's why I'm wounded. But rather, look at presently now, not your past. Look at now. When you interact with others, what is the reflection that comes back to you? Do they get triggered regularly? Are there, do you get caught in these pity loops, where it's always poor me, and then you attract others who encourage that, and you come together and create this place of poor me where everyone feels like they're safe, but they're also stuck? Or, how does your world reflect to you? Because when you are willing to be honest and authentic with yourself, and you are willing to present authentically to the world around you, then you'll get a real authentic reflection back to you. Now that reflection can be really uncomfortable sometimes. You know, it can be really hard to acknowledge that maybe you actually own a little bit of responsibility for the disharmony in your life. It feels so much better to be able to blame the world around you, to say, oh yeah, it was my upbringing, or it was, you know, the way the world and society works, you know, I'm trapped by it, it's not my fault. There's a certain kind of relief, and it's a very superficial, synthetic kind of relief that we get from those stories. And often we create communities where we find those who agree with our stories, because then we can safely hide away in them. But inside, the wound still rots away. It doesn't get fixed by it. And so the Skywalker is saying, stretch out of your comfort zones. Wake up from your slumber and your dreams and your idea that, you know, that you are isolated in this. And actually listen to the reflections around you and seek out people who share different perspectives. Now in this, I'm not saying go out and find people that want to argue with you, and not go out there and find people that want to challenge you just for the point of challenging. But dare to embrace another's perspective, to listen fully, even if you don't agree with it. You know, it's like you look at the religions, you know, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing cross-pollination between religions when, you know, people of different faiths can stand together and share their experience of God from their different ways. Because what happens when we start letting go of this, oh, you know, I know my intuition is correct, you know, you're wrong, but mine is correct because I trust in me. And then in that, suddenly you get all these reactions from around you that you have to battle with, protecting your view of things. But when you can go out and meet somebody on the battlefield, and you can meet them, stand strong in, okay, this is who I am now and what I feel. Let me hear you. Share with me. Share with me a different perspective. When you listen to somebody, it doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. But to truly open your heart and listen with an open mind is the art of the Skywalker. To be able to actually explore different states of consciousness, different perspectives. And you might just find that those reflections that are coming at you that might feel like they're attacking you or suppressing you, that there might be some secrets in there that you're missing. That in the cave of your own internal world where you feel like you can trust your intuition or you know what's going on, maybe there's some dogmas as well. Maybe we've created our own dogmas. It happens in the spiritual world a lot. You know, I'm getting a lot of lessons from the business world right now, a world that I resisted for so long. I've resisted authority. I've resisted, you know, business and finances and all these kinds of things and structure. I used to resist and push against and want to break. And I realized that in my rebellion against this, I just stepped straight back into the path of mediocrity. I wasn't being me. And now by exploring these worlds that I resisted, I'm realizing that there is so much deep wisdom that is being held by them. You know, some of the greatest businessmen in this world are actually quite tapped in. Now, it often means that they might have one half of the puzzle. And a lot of the time, this is where you see the political splits between left and right. Left without the right in politics is idealistic and will never get the dream because they won't be able to create the structure to fuel it. But the right side of politics without the left becomes cold and heartless. But they become abundant. And so when you can open up and have this red Skywalker energy come out and explore the different sides of perspectives, you begin to see that we all have a separation inside us that needs to be bridged. And if we're not willing to look at that separation and actually listen to all sides of the spectrum out there, we're not going to listen to the different spectrums inside us in here. And we won't be able to bridge them. And so I encourage you, in this pathway of healing for the next 7 days to follow, or 6 days to follow, as we go through the next half of the Blue Hand Wavespell, to really let go of what you think you know is right and wrong, and to let go of judging others. And when you get triggered from outside, ask yourself, what is it in me that is out of whack that it reacts to what's happening here? And why is that? And explore it. Open your eyes to it. Own it. Because when we own our weaknesses, when we own our sufferings, and we own our wounds, it's then that you now have the ability to respond consciously in every moment to take a step towards its healing. But as long as we blame the outside world and keep projecting our wounding outwards, we lose our ability to respond. We hand our power away. So really go out there and explore. You know, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be upset. It's okay if things aren't perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try and be you as you think it is now and fuck up. Pardon my expression. The difference is whether you are actually present and aware in the moment that you make mistakes in life, and whether you learn from them or not. I used to have an old boss, I've said this story before, I'm sure, on the weather reports, and I'll close off with it. And Jules Andrews, he's one of the best bartenders in the world, and I was training to become one, and I was in my younger 20s, and he used to call me Chucky, long story. And he said, Chucky, you can make as many mistakes as you like while you're working for me. Just don't make the same mistake twice. And I thought that was the most powerful piece of advice I've received in my life. Definitely up there. And I've since held it in my heart as I go forwards. And I share it with anyone when I've been managing places. I've always shared the same. I'll always have the patience for any mistake once. And I think it's important that we have that freedom to make mistakes at least once. But if you make it twice, well, then you're not paying attention. And if you make it 3 times, you're beginning to get reckless. So allow yourself to expand, allow yourself to get out there and try new things, because how can you discover your wounding if you don't leave your safety? But of course, look after yourself. Drink lots of water, eat some good, healthy, nutritious food, take care of this vehicle. Don't put yourself, when I say this, I'm not saying to put yourself in violent, dangerous situations. I just simply mean take on your fears. Expand, stretch. And you never know, you might discover latent talents